You stepped into shadow and substance, creativity and integrity. You stepped behind the byline.
Welcome to Behind the Byline, a dimension where the journalists matter just as much as the stories they cover. I'm joined by another guest today, currently one of Vibe Magazine's hip-hop reporters, featured host on Live Take, host of the Stay Busy podcast, and a contributor and a host for The A Show.
Yep.
And a graduate of Cornell University, class of 2017. Make some noise. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Armon Sadler.
My guy. Thank you for having me, man. Very excited that you're doing this.
Oh man, no. Thank you for agreeing to do this. Like I'm still a rookie in this shit. Probably maybe this is my second year here. So I'm grateful that I'm blessed with someone of your stature in this game. I appreciate you.
It means a lot, bro.
So before we jump into the writer's journey, I wanted to get to know who Armon was as a whole human being. So who is Armon Sadler?
Great question, man. And I feel like there's so many ways to take that. Like that's such a vague question that you can interpret in so many ways. I feel like everyone kind of interprets it differently. I think I am a young man from Englewood, New Jersey. Grew up in a great family. Very supportive, very strict, very, they just pushed me to be the person that I can be. And I think that instilled the work ethic and the competitive energy in me that I have. What else? I'm obviously a very, very huge wrestling fan. That's something that I really like. That's part of my identity.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. It's impacted how I look at life. Taco lover, Haitian American, I can go on and on. I can give various characteristics, but I think the things that my mind goes to first are very telling about just I work hard, I take pride in who I am, I love the things that I love, and I'm always trying to get better. I think that's what all those answers kind of dictate.
Yeah. And so, as previously mentioned, you went to Cornell.
Yep.
Talk to me about that experience and how everything you just told me sort of informed your decision to go there.
Absolutely. I remember when I was super young, my mom told me I had to be like 8, 9, 10, and she was like, you're going to get into Cornell because I applied to Cornell and I didn't get in. So I want you to do better than me, so you're going to get in.
Okay.
And when I'm a kid, I'm like, I want to be a professional athlete. Like, you're not really thinking about college. You're not thinking about the academic future. You're thinking about things that you want to do. And that was something that she, would tell me every year. And then when you get to high school, the whole college thing becomes more serious.
Yeah.
I was that type of student where I was very smart. I consider myself a very smart person. My work ethic wasn't there yet, though. So I got by, studying for a test the night before, doing my homework, and the period before it was due, stuff like that. So I did well in high school, but like the grades that I got, I didn't think Ivy League was a realistic thing for me.
Right.
And I was still on the, I'm going to play professional football professionally or baseball professionally. And then junior year comes, and obviously you start taking the SAT, really start thinking about college, all of that. Yeah. And I did a summer college program at Syracuse the summer going into my junior year. And I had a blast. I loved it. I fell in love with Syracuse. So I was like, I think this is where I want to go. And I had a lot of ties there. My older brother went there. I was in this college preparatory program that was super connected with Syracuse. So pretty much everyone who was in that college prep program, most of them got into Syracuse or had a really good chance because we were cool with the admissions people there.
Yeah.
It was a program for black kids, helped them with their SAT prep and took them on college visits, all that. So doing really good work for kids who needed it and probably didn't think college was realistic for them or would have settled for a community college or something. So went to Syracuse Summer College, fell in love with it, came back my junior year. I was like, I'm going to Cuse. That's where I'm going. And my mom stayed on me. She was like, but these Ivy Leagues, these Ivy League schools, you got to apply to these Ivy Leagues. I'm like, all right, whatever. The next year, senior year, when you're actually applying to schools, I was dead set on applying early decision to Syracuse. My mom had me visit Cornell, and I fell in love with that campus too. I was like, damn. And I was there in the fall. Like I don't know. Well, obviously you're from Buffalo, so you know how the weather gets upstate.
Yeah.
You know how the weather gets upstate. It's like fall time is beautiful. The trees, leaves, all that.
Looks like a painting.
Yeah. So I didn't know the bitter cold that I was preparing to endure. But just seeing that campus, seeing the people, meeting people, getting more intel about what an Ivy League school entails, because everyone has their preconceived notions about it. I was like, I can see myself here.
Word.
So didn't apply to Syracuse or Cornell early decision. Applied to both regular decision. And I've told this story so many times, but it just sticks with me. I think it's just a perfect representation of life is going to take you in a direction that you didn't plan. So March 2013, I'm in Philly for a trip for my AP US History class. And that day, I was expecting to hear from Syracuse. And I was kind of in a mood that day because I had an interview for an internship that day, and I bombed it. It was terrible. I was not prepared at all. Wow. I could tell the answers I was given. They were just like, yeah.
What's he talking about?
You're not getting this. So I was just in a mood. So went to go get a cheesesteak, get some food to make myself feel better, and then I get an email from Cornell about coming to visit campus. I forget what the program was, where like they would have people who applied or people who got in just come stay on campus for a day. But I read that. I was like, okay, cool. You want me to come to campus? I've been there before. Like whatever. And then keep reading, and like buried into the second paragraph of the email was, you're getting this email because you were going to be admitted into Cornell University. I was like, what the fuck? You said that so nonchalantly. Like I don't know. I figured you would have accepted in the subject line already. Yeah. And I by that time I'd already heard back from like 6 schools. Yeah. And I swept them all. Like I got into like the first 6 or 7 schools that I heard back from. So I was kind of, feeling some momentum. They weren't the schools I wanted to hear from yet, but I was feeling good. I was like, I know I'm gonna go somewhere for college. Yeah. But the fact that I got into an Ivy League and I heard from them the day I was supposed to hear from Syracuse, I was like, this means something.
This might be it.
Yeah, it was hard not to be excited about that, because that's how life is. Sometimes you want things and you don't think you can get them, and then when you actually get them, you're just like, oh, this means a lot. Yeah. So 2 weeks later, I get waitlisted from Cornell. I'm from Syracuse, sorry.
Oh, okay.
I was like, all right, well, I guess the decision was kind of made for me. I'm going to just go to Cornell.
Yeah.
So I just like to give that backstory, just because like I did not think it was something for me, and I was always a very confident person, very aware of my abilities, but just getting that just really charged me up. Like, I can make even more of myself than what I thought. So I get to Cornell, super locked in. I did very well in my first semester, like academically, and thankfully I wasn't involved in too many things. And
what was your major?
Communication. Yeah, focus in media studies. So
gotcha.
Very appropriate for what I'm doing now. But I did super well that semester, and then I kind of realized like I want to do more than just be a good student here. I grew up very well rounded. I played sports. I was in the church choir. I was in community service groups. I was president of the National Honor Society. On and on. Like I had my hand.
Layers to Armon.
Yeah. I had my hand in a lot of things, and my parents encouraged that. So I played club rugby for a semester. I joined the Black Mentorship group and joined the executive board for that. I was in a freestyle group for like a day.
Freestyle dancing or rapping?
Rapping.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. What else did I do? I ended up doing a bunch of stuff, but I think like the biggest highlights of my Cornell experience were joining Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, which is where it started. And that allowed me to do a lot of community service on campus, do a lot of professional development events, mentor younger students, and then obviously there's the social aspect too, the parties, the strolling, all of that. But I think the biggest thing about Cornell for me, it really gave me a realistic perspective of what the real world is going to be like. I was the only black kid on my floor.
Wow.
My freshman year.
I know what that's like.
Yeah. And there weren't too many black kids in my dorm at all. And I always grew up with a very diverse friend group as well. I had white friends. I had Asian friends. I had, just a bunch of different types of people. So I got along with them well. It wasn't a big deal. But when you're talking about going home for fall break, which is like a 3-4 day break, and then you got people saying, "Oh, I'm going to Spain," or "I'm going here just for these 4 days."
I know that game too. Yeah.
Cornell made me realize how black I am, and also the differences in financial, classes and all that.
Yeah.
But it was cool. It just gave me something to aspire towards, and I think it made me really value things like activism. I was on campus when stuff like, I wasn't on campus, but I was getting ready to go to campus when, Trayvon Martin was killed, and just a bunch of different things. Or when that one frat in, I want to say it was like Michigan or something, got caught on video saying like, there will never be a nigger in our frat, stuff like that. And so, being Greek, being a black Greek and seeing that somewhere else, it was something that we wanted to address on our campus because, the reality was there were white frats and white sororities on our campus who were like that too. They just didn't get caught doing it.
Thanks.
So, it made me take myself a lot more seriously, also take the world a lot more seriously, and kind of recognize like this is probably what I'm going to deal with when I get off of campus, and so let me figure out how to move now. But it was an amazing experience. I learned a lot. I'm very thankful for it. I've got a lot of really close friendships beyond the fraternity, of course. And yeah, it's like that was really like the building ground for the person who I am now. So very thankful for it.
That's fire. So what was your first writing job straight out of college?
So I actually got an internship while I was in college. I was writing for. Well, did you mean like paid opportunity?
Oh yeah.
Or just
if it's like a, I don't want to call it slavery, but if it's like a free internship, but like a job where you're getting a check and these words matter and you getting money behind it.
Yeah. So I got my first freelance checks writing for Revolt in 2018.
Wow.
The power of connections there. One of my friends, he was writing for them, and I figured out I wanted to be a music journalist around 2016. So I had like 2 years of free writing, and I interned at The Source in that time too.
Oh, wow.
And then I took a job out of college, which I hated. I only lasted there 4 months, and I was like, I'm never gonna commit my time to something that I'm not happy doing. And I know what I want to do, so I'm going to stubbornly and boldly pursue it until I can do it. And so I saw my boy writing for Revolt, and I reached out. I was like, yo, like this is dope. Like, how can I do this too? He's like, I'll give you the editor's email, reach out, send them some pitches. I can help you with your pitches. And so I think the first article I did for Revolt was writing about long albums, because that was the summer when Drake put out Scorpion. So I was writing about
comes back to Drake.
he's that's my guy. He's a very integral part of my journey.
I love that.
Because there was just the whole conversation of 25 song albums, and that was also the summer when Kanye and Good Music did all the 7-song albums. So like the length of albums was a hot topic, and my perspective was, you have the creative freedom to do that when you're already established. Because I think the year before that, Yachty put out like a 19-song album, Teenage Emotions, and it was bad.
It was,
and it was just like, Yachty, I don't want to give you that time to listen to 17, 19 songs, however long it was. But someone like Drake, I'll give that time to, because I've heard what he can do before. So yeah, I wrote that, and I think I only got like $120 for it, but at the time
but that mattered.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Like, when you didn't have a job and it's your first time writing, you're like, you see that check, you're like,
yo,
not only are my words going out to hundreds of thousands of people, but I can get paid for this. This is cool.
Yeah.
This is really cool. So that really charged me up. I ended up doing another one for them, writing about how I wanted more R&B artists to do collaborative albums. Because I think at the time, Division and Her were rumored to do one. Never happened.
Did you post that or something like that to your Medium at the time?
Yes, yeah. It's on my Medium page.
I remember reading that.
Yeah.
I remember reading that.
Yeah, it's on my Medium page. But so Revolt was the first paid writing gig where I was actually paid for my writing. Like the Source gave me a stipend at the end of the summer, but I was doing so much there, like beyond just news articles. And stuff.
Yeah. What was that atmosphere like when you were there grinding out?
The Source was cool, man. It was a very, like, within the office, a very small team. It was like me, one other editor, there was the graphics guy, there was the legal team, and that was a wild summer, because that was when the owner, Londell McMillan, Jay-Z dissed him on 444.
Yeah.
So not only was I writing news articles, but I was like helping to organize the office. I was answering the phone because a lot of phone calls came in. I was helping them set up their festival. So that day, TMZ was calling to try to get a quote from him, and I had to hang up the phone every time. Like, if he doesn't want to talk, leave him alone. But it was cool because, prior to that, I was writing for like just blogs, small blogs, independent blogs. And then to be in that kind of high level scenario, very fast paced, very high stakes, like everything mattered. That's the first time I dealt with an editor who was like super strict. And I kind of realized, as creative as I want to be, as many ideas as I have, they have things they want to accomplish, so I have to temper those a little bit. And it's a tough lesson to learn. I know you two are a very ambitious, creative person. You want to do a lot of things, and unfortunately, sometimes we get places and they don't always want to accept those ideas. So you kind of got to find that balance between what I want to do and what we want to do, and being a team player. So, I kind of got in where I fit in, but I also, the internship was only supposed to be 3 days. I told them, I'm coming in 5 days a week.
Oh, okay. I was about to say.
Yeah. It was only 3 days a week. I told them I'll be here every day because I want this to be a job for me when I graduate. And I didn't get it's a story. It's a long story. Fuck it, I'll tell it. So after I lost my first job out of college, which was a recruitment job, I reached out to the Source and I was like, I'm not working right now. I really enjoyed my time there. I would love to work here full time. I got an email like, yeah, well, we would love to have you. Like, how much are you looking to get paid? And that should have, that should have made a little light bulb go off in my head. Like, asking what I want to get paid, like
they usually ask that when they can sense that someone's desperate to like jumpstart something.
Yeah. And so the recruitment job I had, I was making like $40K a year. So I was like 50. Like if I'm moving up, and if I'm gonna fully commit to y'all, like, I'm also gonna like, what's the thing people say? My price is my price.
Oh yeah, man. And the price is going up.
Yeah, and it was going up. I had written for Revolt. I was doing great work for a bunch of other blogs, and so told them 50. Never heard back. I was like, okay, got it. Gave you guys my entire summer. I think I wrote so much that summer too. Like I was going crazy. I think I did and looking back now, compared to the amount that we write, maybe it wasn't a lot, but I think I did like 160 news articles in like 2.5 months, something like that, which felt like a lot to me.
Yeah.
But I didn't hear back, and I was like, all right, cool, whatever. Well, you're gonna regret that, and
the revenge tour.
Yeah. And like
it all comes back down to Drake.
All due respect to them, but I think if you look at what they're doing now, there's really nothing else, nothing left to say.
We respect the Source on Behind the Byline.
Yeah, well, of course, things change.
Things change. So from there, what was that moment that would you say sort of helped you catapult yourself to the next step?
Yeah,
that would make you not eligible for a place like Vibe magazine, but where you thought in your eyes, yeah, that's the inevitable next step.
Yeah. Pandemic, man. Pandemic hit and stuck in the house, bunch of free time, just a bunch of time to listen to music, bunch of time to really actively write again. Because prior to the pandemic, I was working a job where I was a valet at a car dealership.
What?
Yeah, I was a valet at a car dealership.
What? How? So how do? Okay, you don't got to spend too much time there.
Yeah.
How did you? Why are we there?
So for me, it was from when I lost the recruitment job to like mid 2019.
Okay.
I wasn't working, so I was broke. I was broke as shit, and at the time I wasn't collecting unemployment. So I was just like, I need to find something just to pay the bills, just to make money, try and save, try and afford the lifestyle that I live that I can't afford right now, because I was outside partying, doing a bunch of stuff that I couldn't afford. And like looking back, I regret how irresponsible I was at that time. So I was like, all right, well, I need to find something where I can make decent money, but also still have time to write.
So that survival job.
Yeah.
Basically like the bridge.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, that whole time, it's not like I wasn't doing nothing. Like I was, like I said, I was writing for blogs. I was applying to a bunch of different jobs, and it wasn't working out at the time, but I didn't necessarily have the resume for it either. So I was like, all right, let me just find something just to make some money, but also still have the freedom to write as much as I want. So valeting cars at a car dealership, I'd get there at like 6:45 in the morning. I would leave at like 5:30 p.m. So that was 11 hours out of my day.
Sheesh.
At the car dealership, go to the gym, come home right at night, do it all over again. Sometimes I would work Saturdays too, so it was hell. But pandemic hit, obviously car dealership kind of shut down. So I was home and I was collecting unemployment, and then that was when they had so you had your state unemployment, and then like the federal government was giving money. So I was kind of racking up. I was cashing out.
I remember
from that first stimmy check hit too. So financially, I was feeling good, and I was like, damn. Okay, so.
But did you feel fulfilled?
No, not at all. Not at all. And that's where the writing came in. I had time to fall in love with writing again. And so I'd started my Medium page summer 2019, and 2020 was really when it took off. I reviewed Drake Dark Lane demo tapes, and that article just went crazy on social media.
Wow.
Like,
how come?
There was a lot of discourse surrounding the album, and a lot of the reviews for me, like, Drake is an interesting figure in music journalism because I feel like a lot of, and I'm not going to act like I know him, I understand him, but I feel like a lot of people don't make the effort to do so.
Yeah.
Like, it's a lot of low-hanging fruit, insults and critiques thrown his way.
Like soft boy.
And like he should be making more mature content, or I want a full rap album, stuff like that. And it's just like, so my review was of the music, but it was also a review of the reviews that the music was getting. And it got retweeted by like some people who were pretty notable in the music space. And so I think just the fact that we were all inside, everyone was mad about the way the Dark Lane demo tapes, a mixtape, was being reviewed, and the fact that I kind of went at those people. I think that's what really helped it go crazy.
Wow.
And so from there, I wrote an article about Brent Faiyaz's Fuck the World.
I remember that.
Yeah, and I kind of tied it into what was going on with the Black Lives Matter movement. And then I also interviewed Pusha T that summer.
Wow.
And yeah, so I just had a bunch of big moments where for me it was just like, I'm good at this and I'm also making an impact on people. And then in October 2020, I wrote a piece on Bryson Tiller, which he ended up retweeting, and he followed me and like showed me love on social media, stuff like that. So moments like that where, like, looking back, that's not what I was doing it for. I was doing it because I loved writing.
Right.
I loved expressing my ideas. I loved long form, really thoughtful writing.
Yeah.
And, getting those cosigns was just like an added bonus. But I also think in the midst of the pandemic, when I was admittedly depressed as fuck, just having those moments to feel good about what I did.
Nice sense of validation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Now I try to play things a little cooler whenever big moments happen. But at the time I was hungry, and I just knew, like, this is what I wanted to do. This is what I've always wanted to do. I need to get there. I need to put my reps in. It's like you're a professional athlete. During the off season, of course, it's nice to just get time off, take vacations. But guys like Damian Lillard spend their time on the court every day because they want to come back better, and they always do.
Facts.
How serious are you about this craft? How good do you want to be? And so I just, for me, it was like, all right, this is a big moment, so I need to get another one. So I'd say the pandemic was really like a turning point for me, especially doing it all off Medium. Like, it wasn't like I was Armon at Complex or Armon at Billboard or Armon at Vibe even. I was just Armon. Like, people knew me for me.
Yeah.
So that was probably the most validating part, because I had a period where I was like anti-publication because the whole pitching process really turned me off. Like, it sucked when you felt like you had a really good idea and someone told you, nah, that's whack.
Yeah, or they try to like take pieces out,
Yeah.
trim it down, trim the
Yeah.
fat, but then like the fat is what was the crux of the argument that you were trying to make. Yeah, I got you.
And again, looking back, it's like I had to understand, these editors knew what they were doing. They had a vision for what they wanted on their websites. I think I definitely took things too personal at the time. I kind of had to grow tougher skin within this space. But I had one experience where I got like all the way to the end with the publication. Like, I had the headline, I had the idea, I had a good draft for it.
Yeah.
One editor looked at it, they were like, yo, this is golden. Like, I can't wait to put this up. And then like the head editor at the place was like, the amount of editing I'll have to do is just going to take too much time, so we're actually going to have to nix this piece, and you should probably download Grammarly. I was like,
Oh, all right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's crazy.
yeah. So that stuck with me, and I try not to be motivated by negativity, but at the time,
But it helps.
it does.
You
It
know,
does.
it
It
does.
does. You don't want that to be the primary gas that you put into your vehicle,
Because that can definitely breed some unsavory
Yeah.
experiences.
Yeah.
But, sometimes that Mamba mentality needs a little, so I get
Yeah.
it. I got it.
Yeah.
I got it. But, in the background of your journey,
Mm-hmm.
while all this is taking place, the media landscape is shifting.
Yeah.
It's very volatile.
Yeah.
As we've all come to know. And, others like you and yourself and myself have seen various jobs come and go,
Yeah.
titles come and go. I mean, whole publications just wiped out.
Yeah.
Most recently, there have been like waves of panic
Mm-hmm.
in U.S. journalism, as, like I said, jobs are just eliminated altogether, or maybe they're swallowed.
Yeah.
I know The Guardian recently released an article this year entitled "The Final Act Fears U.S. Journalism Crisis Could Destabilize the 2024 Election." So that's how far we've even gotten.
Yeah.
And then we have the rise of AI, which is, I don't want to sound like somebody who's scared of the future, because I love the future. However, as someone who writes, if there's an artificial intelligence program that could just write everything I'm writing, what do they need us for?
Yeah.
And the article basically details all of that and, those scary possibilities.
Yeah.
As a journalist who has done the work, you've walked the path, right? You got your degree.
Yeah.
Everything that you're supposed to do to be an accredited, certified expert, if you will, on the written report. How does news like this make you feel now that you're at that stage in your career where you're just trying to take it, like, I got it, I'm trying to take it to the next level,
Yeah.
and now we have this threatening your possibility of a future?
Yeah. It's concerning, man. I'm not going to front. There was last year, there was a period where I would wake up every day and check my email and be afraid that we're going to get laid off. Like that's a real thing,
That's a real thing.
You see these layoffs, you see these publications going down, you see all that, and you're worried, and it's like, bro, I worked so hard to get here, and I've been having the time of my life, and
Yeah.
it can all be taken from me, and it especially sucks because it's not like you did anything wrong. It's just they might not have the money for you anymore. They just might be wanting to pivot to AI or something, and thankfully, God bless the fact that it hasn't happened. I don't want to say yet because that'll make me feel like it's inevitable.
You know what I'm saying?
But it's a real fear. It's a real concern to have, especially like the really high level publications who do this at a certain level, like a Pitchfork getting folded into a GQ, or the way Complex is changing, or just a bunch of places that we grew up reading, or who were kind of the premier places while we were coming up in the space. So it's definitely concerning. I really try to do my best everywhere I go to demonstrate my value. That's what I'm continuing to try to do.
Yeah.
But you also have to be prepared to possibly pivot. It's something that one of my guys, Justin Davis, OG Johnny 5, shout out to him, he has always pushed me to be prepared to pivot, whether it's I get tired of this or whether there's nothing for me in this space anymore.
Yeah.
And so I've been working on my pivot for the last year or so. There is a reality for me where it's like maybe I'll just go fully into this wrestling space as a content creator and not do music anymore. Sports too, like doing live take has really revived that love in me to talk sports and connect with other people who are really high level thinkers when it comes to sports. And I've just felt like I've fallen in love with sports again. I mean, I've loved sports my whole life, and I'll have periods where I'm watching a lot, then periods where I'm not watching much. And admittedly, sports betting has me really actively watching sports. Like you gotta, you can't just raw dog FanDuel. Like you gotta know, like, bro, is it really smart for me to bet on Klay Thompson 30 points right now when he hasn't scored 30 in a while? Like, should I really do that? And if you're watching, then you know that.
Please gamble responsibly.
Yeah, absolutely. Call the hotline if need be. But I've been working on my pivot, if it comes to that. I think you always need to be prepared. I remember someone I interviewed on my podcast, Kojo, he got great advice from Wayno in the music space, who said, plan your exit upon your entrance. And that's not, like get somewhere and be like, oh, I know I'm going to leave here. But if and when that day comes, you've got something to fall back on, and not like a backup option that you're settling for, but somewhere you can thrive.
It's a Batman contingency plan.
Right. Exactly. You always need to have that. And so I've been really working on continuing to strengthen how well-rounded I am. So if and when that day comes, I can find something to do that I'm thriving at, that I'm still happy doing, and can maintain my lifestyle and my stability. So, it's everything we're talking about is definitely fear-inducing, but it's like, how do you respond to fear? Do you just sit there scared, or do you find ways to get out of the possible hole that you can fall into?
You know what I mean? And as they say, pressure does make diamonds.
Yeah.
So I know you mentioned earlier that wrestling sort of shaped the way you started to look at life.
Yeah.
In such a different aspect and perspective.
Yeah.
So how do you necessarily use sports and wrestling to stay inspired in this landscape where it is so volatile and where you may or may not know where your next check is coming from via writing?
Yeah, it's I think sports inherently are competition, but there's also narrative associated with it, and so I don't want to say I like romanticize my life, but I'm a big dreamer. I'm passionate about this stuff.
Facts.
And so I treat every win like it's a big deal, and I try to learn from every loss. And the losses come. Life definitely isn't perfect. I definitely had an incredible year last year, but I also had some bad things happen. And I think it's just it's all about how you adjust. And so you look at a team like the Kansas City Chiefs this past year.
Yeah.
They had a tumultuous regular season, even though they were still like 10-7, 11-6.
Who was catching the ball? We don't know.
Yeah. And then what they do? They went and won a Super Bowl still.
Yeah.
And so it's ultimately like being resilient, sticking to it. Patrick Mahomes, he was angry at his teammates. He could have just given up on them, but I think his sister posted that text message from January where he was like, "Yo, I think we're gonna go on a run and like win the Super Bowl," because he had that belief, and it's all about having that belief in yourself. And obviously, it's timing, it's getting lucky. Believing in yourself and getting lucky doesn't always mean that there's gonna be an opportunity for you, but like the moment you stop believing in yourself, it ultimately affects how you move. Yeah. And so I've had that delusional confidence in myself always, and it's paid off for me. And so I know, if this vibe thing ends tomorrow, I'll be okay. I might not be okay in the timeline that I want to be or that I need to be to pay these bills and all that, but I know eventually I'll be okay because I'm putting myself in that position.
Beautiful, man. And now that we know who's holding the pen, let's go behind the byline.
Let's do it.
So the first one we got, Metro Boomin's first Super Bowl ad is Deeper Than Beer. It's full circle. Yeah. Published February 2023, Vibe magazine. You are the author of this coveted piece. Talk to me how this article, this feature, came to be, and what was the premise behind it?
Yeah. So as I'm sure you've experienced, one of the things that I did not anticipate in this full-time publication role, especially a very well-respected, revered story publication, is we've all interviewed artists before, but interviewing an artist for a particular thing, like a branded type of interview,
Keke
something
Palmer
like that.
via Oreo.
Yeah. So got that. I was like, oh, bro, I'm about to talk to Metro. That's cool. I'd love to talk to Metro. And then it's about a commercial. So it's like, okay, you kind of have an alley-oop for something to talk about where you can still do a bunch of different research, but like there's ultimately a main thing that you should be discussing and kind of hitting on. What I also wasn't prepared for was the fact that a lot of these interviews would only be 10 minutes. Like,
Plot
you know,
twist.
I was used to getting 30. I talked to Pusha T for like 90 minutes. I talked to Jermaine Dupri for Vibe for like 90 minutes. Typically, most interviews I've done, they were no shorter than 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So hearing that you're going to get 10 minutes to talk to Metro Boomin, you've got to talk about this commercial, but you've got other things you want to talk to him about. It's a real test of your abilities. And so I looked at it as a challenge in that regard. It's like, I get 10 minutes with this guy. He's probably talking to a lot of people throughout the day. How do I keep him entertained and get good answers out of him and also make the most of that 10 minutes?
Does the pressure sort of build up in anticipation of all that, or no, not at all?
Not necessarily pressure, but more so like I want to make sure that I get enough to write a good piece out of this.
Right.
So it's not pressure. It's just giving the person you're talking to the room to give you a thorough answer, but then also knowing like, all right, I got to cut this off because I got to ask you this, and like, you know, also being respectful of them too. So, you know, we talk about the commercial, of course. We talk about, you know, him being from St. Louis, and you know, we talked about the 5 songs that he thought, you know, really defined his producer career, his favorite Super Bowl meals, who he thought was going to win, all that. So it was and we ended up going overtime too. Like literally, they were in the Zoom call like, we have to stop. But like, but Metro was stumped by that 5 songs question,
yeah.
and he wanted to give a thorough answer. So he was like, you know, I wish we got more time. We got to do this again. That's also probably one of the most great things a journalist can hear. Yeah. And, you know, sometimes some artists or people will just say that.
Blowing hot air.
They don't actually mean it. It felt like he actually meant it because he was like, yo, I've never been asked this before. Like, that's a really good question. That's a credit to your journalism. And so that felt really good. So interview was amazing. And then it was about, all right, constructing it, you know, taking all of the good stuff that I got in 10 minutes and making it into a quality piece. And so I got to give a lot of credit to Ayana, who's the former editor at Vibe. She helped me improve so much as a writer. I came into Vibe thinking I was already super nice. I mean, like that's the reality. Like, you know, we know what we've done. We know how the pen works, but working with an editor like her has made me significantly better.
We love Ayana.
Absolutely. And so I loved the narrative behind the commercial because he talked about like going to the factories when he was younger. Like he took a school trip there, and you know, obviously the commercial being for the Super Bowl, like talking about, you know, like what do you eat at the Super Bowl, and like growing up, what did he eat? So there was just a lot of like storytelling within something that could have been pretty surface level. So it was just really enjoyable to write. And I also naturally asked him, like, the very first question I asked him was like, yo, Metro, like, you know, do you trust me? Like, you got to do that to break the ice. And so he laughed. He felt comfortable.
He trusts you, right?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he laughed.
You know what happens if...
Yeah, right, exactly. Yes, yeah. So, you know, thankfully, it was virtual, so there was no possibility of getting shot through the screen. But yeah, like, I love that piece because of what I was able to do with just a 12-minute conversation, the narrative of it, the new information I was able to give people, because I don't think he'd ever spoken to anyone about like the 5 songs that he felt defined his career. And
that's huge.
I think he said Karate Chop, the Congratulations with Post Malone. I want to say he said one of the Sway Lee songs from Not All Heroes Wear Capes. I want to say it wasn't Dreamcatcher. It was the other one. It was Sway Lee and Offset. I forget the name right now. But and I don't even remember the other 2. Oh, maybe he said, what was it, Diamonds Dancing? I think he said Diamonds Dancing too.
Yeah.
And the fifth one. Oh, and Heartless Weekend.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Diamonds Dancing, Heart. Yep.
Yeah. So
crazy that he did that.
Yeah, no, he's
nasty.
Dude's incredible. But so I think, you know, just the fun that it seemed like he was having, because he looked tired when I got on the Zoom, and you know, just all the quality answers and information I was able to give people, and then the way I was able to construct it. Like one thing Ayana really helped me with is writing my you know, the first paragraph of the pieces, because that's how you hook a reader. You know, if the first paragraph is boring, I might not read anymore. And so I just really tried to paint the scene. You know, he was flustered. I asked him the question about the 5 songs that he felt defined his career, and he was really sitting there thinking. He was like, yo, I've never been asked this before. Like, and so, you know, painting the picture that way, giving the context about himself, and then kind of getting into the Q&A portion of it. I personally hate Q&A interviews. I like more of the profile writing style.
Yeah. How come? What is it about the Q&A type format that you were like, I don't know about that one?
I don't get to flex my pen enough. You know, you write a good 3-4 paragraphs, and then you're just regurgitating the questions and answers.
Yeah, a little transcription.
Yeah, rather than, you know, like really painting a picture and finding the right place to put the quotes and, you know, the setup sentences and the context and adding more voice and adding more flair and more humor. So that one ended up being a Q&A, but I was really happy with the initial paragraphs I wrote before we got to the Q&A portion. But yeah, man, it's just it's a career highlight for me. You know, I think he's one of the greatest producers of all time, and I also think that he's a very insightful person. And yeah, so I was just that's one of the pieces where when I finished it and when I put it out and when I reread it, because I do reread some of my old work sometimes just to get motivation or just look back like, oh, I could have done that better or whatever the case is. Like, that's one of the ones I really enjoy going back to and reading.
And how would you say your nerves were when you were preparing to write and maybe interview Metro Boomin? Were there any sort of fluctuating nerves, or were you just like, nah, it's just another day at the office?
I don't get nervous, man. I really don't. Like, I think there are only 2 times in my career that I've gotten nervous. One is when I hosted Naomi Sharon's listening event, and I was interviewing her on the spot. Got a little nervous for that because I knew there was going to be OVO people in the room, and you know, she's a new artist, so I want to present her in the best light. Yeah. I want to kind of, you know, give her that space and that comfort to
and be delicate and treat it with the air that it deserves.
Exactly. So that I got nervous for that, and an interview I have coming out soon. I'm sure this episode will be out by the time the interview's already out, but I'm gonna just hold that one anyways. That one I got nervous just because it was actually one of the biggest people I've ever talked to, and she's within the wrestling space. So it just it was like, you know, the fact that I get to talk to this person. One,
is she a current champion?
No, no, she's not. Yeah, it was just it was incredible. Yeah. Just to know that they trusted me to talk to her, and it ended up going really well. But otherwise, I don't get nervous. You know, ultimately these people are human. You know, they have millions of dollars and platinums and Grammys and all that, but they're just human beings. So I try to go uncomfortable so that they can feel comfortable, and I just try to have a conversation. So no, I didn't really get nervous at all.
If there's any advice that you would give to an aspiring writer who's maybe, you know, looking at that article for the first time with Metro Boomin attached to Budweiser, NFL Super Bowl, and maybe they are wanting to do something similar with that, or maybe they were assigned something similar to that.
Yeah.
What advice would you give them to best prepare them to handle that? Because maybe they might get nervous, or maybe they don't know how to properly finesse a Q&A to show some of their character, show some of their pen's voice.
Yeah.
What would you tell them if you could give them any advice?
Yeah, I'd say, especially with these branded types of interviews, like, I think the commercial is only 30 seconds. Yeah. So probably the toughest part for me was like, how do I get a bunch of questions from something that's pretty simple? Like, this is... I think the commercial was like they were walking around handing out beers to different people, and like that was it. Like, it was just like I forget the like the tagline for it, but it was just like, all right, how do I maximize this? Well, okay, like, he's in a commercial. How does it feel to be in a commercial? Like, do you see yourself wanting to act, you know, more in the future? It was 6 degrees of separation, something like that. So
yeah.
What does that phrase mean to you? You know, just finding ways to get more personal information out of them from something that is pretty simple, because you don't know how much something like that may mean to someone. Like, some people might just do a commercial spot because I'll get seen on TV and I make a lot of money from it. But thankfully, he had some personal ties to it. Yeah. So I think doing research on your subject and then thinking of ways that this particular thing can connect to them will get you answers to things that you may not have even thought, you know, would be of value. And then beyond that, you know, also, like, just look, the most important thing is looking at other interviews they've done in the past and not asking the same things that they've been asked before. You want to provide new information to people. You want them to walk away with at least one thing new that they didn't know about them prior.
Yeah.
And so that's my biggest thing, is doing that type of research. Because I know me personally, when I do podcasts and interviews, I don't mind, answering things that I've been asked before. There's certain stories that I love telling, but I can tell when someone isn't well researched.
Yeah.
I can tell when they're just kind of throwing out blanket questions, and as a subject, you like to feel special. It's like, oh, like yo, you know that about me? Oh, that's cool. That's
Make
dope.
me feel something.
That's dope. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I try to do that for other people too. Like there's nothing like, that's a good question, or, oh, let me think about this, because if they have to think about it, it's not something they can just easily regurgitate, meaning they probably haven't been asked it before. So I would say, do your research, try to ask those Easter egg questions, because you might end up getting something that you can kind of run with, turn into like a separate news piece or something like that.
Yeah.
As we love to do.
As we love to do.
Yeah.
So, final question for the Metro Boomin piece.
Sure.
If you could do that over, and there was no Budweiser attached, and we didn't really have to talk about 6 degrees of separation in the Super Bowl, how would you have sort of angled that story with that time that you had, and given the context of that killer year that he had?
Yeah.
I know he has a lot of those under his belt now, but given that year that he had, what angle would you have taken?
Yeah, I mean, that was like 2 months removed from when he dropped Heroes and Villains.
Yep.
That was, he had a song on Her Loss, and he obviously I think I would have asked a lot more about his relationship with Future, and just other artists that he's worked with, like really trying to get like cool in studio type stories or cool moments for him, because yes, he's one of the greatest producers in the world, but he's also like 30 years old, so I'm sure there's a part of him where it's like he gets a certain phone call or he gets to produce for someone, and it's it's like, yo, like this person just called me, like, you know what I'm saying?
What?
Like,
yeah.
So, because I'm 28, he's 30, like we're not far in age at all. So I know for me, I have those moments where I'm like, even if I don't get nervous, I'm like, yo, I'm about to talk to such and such. That's crazy. So getting those moments where you can humanize these people, because that's the biggest thing for me is, as big as these people are, as intangible as they might feel, making them still feel relatable to you.
Facts. And so now we move to Drake's It's All a Blur tour, Prompts a Bittersweet Inquiry, published in August 2023, Vibe magazine. It always comes back to Drizzy Drake. Shout out to Drake. So for those who may not know, what is the process like at Vibe to get approved to review or cover a live show? And maybe like a live show of this stature, because this is not random rapper got a project, it's at Baby's Alright, or R&B artist Baby's Alright. This is Drake. Yeah. So what is that process like for people who may not know?
I mean, it was pretty simple. I just remember there was like a period where Christine, our editor, reached out. She was like, any shows you're going to and you want to recap, just let me know. I was like, I'm going to see Drake at MSG. And that was like a couple days after I was at Rolling Loud too. So my plate was full, because I had to recap Rolling Loud. I had to write a news piece about Lotto's Wingstop party she had. Like, I just had a bunch of stuff going on. So I just expected to go in and be like, yo, like, the visuals was cool, like Drake performed these songs, like, this, that, and the third. And then I get to the show, and by then I went to his Apollo show in January 2023.
You had the Dreamville.
Saw him at Dreamville Fest, so that was my third time seeing him that year.
Wow.
And something was really sticking with me at each show. The fact that he was performing primarily older music. And this is 2023. The last time he toured was 2018. And so since 2018, he dropped Care Package, Dark Lane demo tape, Certified Lover Boy, Honestly Nevermind, Her Loss. He had a lot of new music to perform.
Come on.
And I believe at the time the set list was like either 39 or 43 songs, and only like 13 of them were new. And I was like, I saw Drake on the Scorpion tour, and he primarily performed new music. Like, that's always what he's pushed. Like, if you go back to the the show he did with Kanye in December 2021, Free Larry Hoover Show.
Yeah.
He primarily performed Certified Lover Boy stuff, and people were mad because they wanted to hear the old slaps.
I remember that.
I remember debating a bunch of people. I was like, it's a business. Like, if you're getting on stage for the first time in like 2 years, like, you're going to perform what's newest because you want people who, you know, either are live and haven't heard it or are watching virtually. Like, you want to push that new stuff that you have.
Right.
And so this felt like such a crazy deviation. And so I was thinking a lot about it, and I was thinking about what it means for his career. And it almost felt like a victory lap. It almost felt like reminding people of everything that he's done because he may be inching toward the end of his career. And so I remember talking to you about it in the office, talking to Jason about it, talking to just a bunch of different people about it. And they're like, yo, that's true. Like, I've seen him live. He usually only performs his new stuff. So I was like, all right, I'm not tripping. So I'm going to turn this recap into more of I don't want to say think piece, but just like, make it bigger than just saying, yo, when he brought 21 out for Rich Flex, that was fire. Like, you know, when they did Spin About You, that was fire. Like,
what
more
a
like
moment.
Yo, he's in New York and he's not bringing out any newer artists because that's what he does too. He uses his stage to give other people platforms.
Yeah.
He hadn't brought out anyone at that time. He was ending the show with Legend. So to me, it was just like, I don't think he's going to be done anytime soon, but I think he's getting close to it because he was also talking in interviews about.
He kept alluding to that.
I'm introducing the idea of my graceful exit because I don't ever want to overstay my welcome. So I was like, all right, I'm not tripping. So
who did you have to get in contact to even get to a place like that? Like to get to this Joe at so and so, like Dreamville or maybe at the Apollo, specifically for Drake.
Yeah, so for that show, a publicist I'm cool with, she used to work at Burke Communications, reached out to her. Well, I think she asked, she was like, oh, are you going to see Drake? You going to see Beyonce? I was like, I'd love to, but I don't, you know, like.
Just throwing out those names.
Right, and I think, you know, the great thing about being a journalist at our level, I don't pay for shows. Like, I paid for 2 shows last year. I paid for Beyonce. It was an anniversary gift for my girl at the time, and I paid for the 4th Drake show that I went to because it was in Toronto,
and because it was the 4th one,
right?
Obviously,
yeah. But the publicist, she was like, "Where are you going?" I was like, "I don't got contacts, but if I did, I would definitely reach out." So she sent me, you know, the Drake's team's email. I was like, yo, this is like really powerful. Like, I'm emailing the people who do publicity for Drake.
Little Armon was probably jumping.
Yeah,
with
man.
joy,
It was
man.
like, yo, and then when they actually responded, I was like, oh shit, like let's go. So, you know, I got to go to the show at MSG. Went there, had a great time. But like I said, I was really paying attention to the set list. And then when it came to writing about it, I obviously recapped what he performed and different quotes that he said at the show, all of that stuff.
You took everything that was happening to and with and from Drake at the time into consideration when you went into this. You weren't fucking around.
Yeah, absolutely. And I knew, just because there are some very rabid Drake fans on the internet, that me alluding to him being done would be misinterpreted. And my hope was that when people read it, they would understand it. And I remember the day I tweeted the article out. And obviously, like, as you know on Twitter, you can post the article link, it says the headline, and then you can obviously like add some copy to your actual tweet.
Yeah.
And so I did my best to make it clear, like, hey, I don't think he's done, but I do think that he is inching towards the end of his career on his terms, meaning people aren't done fucking with Drake. Like, people love his music, but this tour compared to how he's handled other tours and just how he rapped on like views, like I think I'm going to retire at 35, stuff like that, and then he kind of doubled back on it, like just different changes of perspectives and all that. The way he's moving, the way he is leaning on his older music, feels like he is getting to a place where he sees the light at the end of the tunnel.
Right.
And he may not be there yet, but he sees it and he's seriously considering it.
Yeah.
I still had people in my mentions, in my quotes, like, Armon, you bugging, he's about to put out an album, stuff like that, or, oh, this is a joke, blah, 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 all that. I'm just like,
Classic.
First of all, you quoted me 5 minutes after I tweeted the article, so there's no way you read 1,500 words in 5 minutes. Like, you don't read that fast.
Not the quiet part out loud.
Yeah, and one person in particular who was, like, going back and forth with me, like, I was like, this is not a negative article. I'm like, I literally say bittersweet in the headline.
Yeah.
And so they were like, oh, like, I'll read it later. I'm like, so you subtweeting me and going back and forth with me, and you ain't even read it. Like, you don't even fully understand what I'm saying.
So, you said you took all that in consideration. So how did you sort of take all that information? You taking what you already know about a pre-existing fan base and how they act on Twitter, and how people would have interpreted it, no matter how you worded it.
Yeah.
How did you play that into your coverage, and how did that impact your game plan going into the piece? Did it change the way you were looking at the concert when you were there, or did it maybe change the way you were going to tackle the beginning, the middle, the end? Like, how, in what ways did it impact?
It didn't impact how I enjoyed or viewed the concert. Like, I do my best to create without fear.
Yeah.
I don't think a negative reception on the internet means the article was bad or your opinion was bad. It's just, like I said, some people don't understand some things. Some people don't read beyond the headline or the tweet copy. And that's just what happened. But I think in the article, I provided enough evidence. Like, I would give my opinions and I would give supporting evidence, which is what you're supposed to do as a reporter, as a critic, as a journalist. And so I would throw out an idea like, yo, he's doing a lot of older music on this tour, and I saw him on the Aubrey and Three Amigos tour.
Example.
Yeah, and it was primarily Scorpion music, and then he did do some old stuff, but he was primarily pushing Scorpion.
Yeah.
He talked about taking a graceful exit in the interview with Yachty. He also talked about it on Queen Radio and Nicki Minaj, and then I would provide like links to that or specific quotes from that. So, I did my best where it's like, even if you disagree with my opinion, these are things that he has said.
Yeah.
So if you're going to disagree with him or say he's lying, then that's one thing. But I at least supported the conclusions that I got to with things directly from the source. So, I mean, again, like I said, I knew what the reaction was going to be, but I knew I did my due diligence to not only interpret things a certain way, but to then bring it back to sources and examples from things.
So I must ask you, before we continue.
Sure.
When did you first fall in love with Drake's artistry? When was that fateful night?
Yeah. I think it had to be like 2008. So
Classic.
Yeah, 2008.
So like around the time like So Far Gone.
Yeah. So Far Gone came out in 2009. I want to say the very first Drake song that I heard, I think he was on Lil Wayne's. It was either Dedication 3 or Drought 3. And I was like, who is this guy? And then like I would hear a bunch of stuff from him, but I never saw what he looked like. So imagine how I felt when I saw Wheelchair Jimmy and people was like, yo, that's Drake. I'm like, wait, that's Drake? Jimmy? Like the wheelchair nigga from Degrassi? Word?
Yeah,
like,
that must have been Dedication 3.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
but
crazy.
Yeah, it was nuts. It was nuts. And I was like, oh shit, look at him doing well for himself. That's fire. But then you see Wheelchair Jimmy, who was dating Hazel and dating Ashley and dating Ellie, now he's hanging with Lil Wayne and Birdman and doing songs
Popping
with Trey
bottles, all
Trey
type
Songz, Kanye, Jay-Z, Eminem. Like he's up there with the heavyweights like of rap. Coming from Canada as a child actor, it's like, wow, okay, look at you.
and like from 2008 to, I mean, Thank Me Later, or even if you want to take it to Take Care, that is a consecutive ascension.
Yeah.
Like all those names, that was in 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Like that's crazy. So was it a standout moment for you from Drake that had you like, yo, nah, I'm one of Aubrey's angels?
I mean, I'll jokingly call myself an Aubrey's angel. I've tried to shed that label since then. I mean, but seriously, like, that's probably one of the most annoying things about talking about him is, yes, I'm a huge fan, but I am rational. I'll tell you when I don't like something.
Yeah.
I'll tell you if I think something he does is corny. But people assume anytime I'm speaking about him, or even if I'm honest about something and it just so happens to sound like it's in favor of him, it's like, oh, but you're just a stan, like all that. So, I'm trying to shed that label, because there's some Drake fans who get really offended if you say one thing is bad. Like they're very rabid. Like everything he does is perfect, and that's not true.
Deaf to stan culture.
Yeah, like while I don't think he has a bad album, like I think relatively, like Certified Lover Boy and Thank Me Later, bottom of his discography, and they're still good, but they're like okay compared to the higher stuff. Like I really do try to be critical of him, but I think it had to be summer 2009. Young Armon, transitioning from middle school to high school, had just broken up with my middle school girlfriend.
Oh man!
I joined the football team. I was going to be the starting quarterback for the freshman team. I was meeting all these new girls and just like growing up and all that. And then you hear a song like Sooner Than Later, or you hear Brand New, or
Damn,
you hear
paint that picture.
Right, Congratulations, or
Uptown.
Uptown, just like a bunch of stuff like that, stuff that I felt like my 14-year-old self could relate to. And that's always been one of his best aspects to me, is like he makes it so relatable, even if he lives a completely different lifestyle from us. And so I think it was like summer 2009 which really solidified my Drake fandom. And then, like you said, we get a Thank Me Later, we get a Take Care. I got Nothing Was the Same my freshman year of college. Like I remember walking to classes playing that. I remember being in my dorm room playing Come Through on repeat.
Damn, man, nothing was the same.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it was just like, I can really identify so many pivotal, significant moments in my life and what Drake music I was listening to and how I felt like I related to it.
And how did you hope to exemplify all of that into this feature? Because I read it. I can tell that it was a first-hand account of being at the crime scene, if you will, during all these pivotal points in his career. You know what I mean? It's not just somebody doing a quick Wikipedia of his albums, best songs, and just going from there. Like you were there throughout all of this history. So how did you hope to best exemplify that love and that passion and even criticism? Yeah.
I mean, I think I've of course considered what a music world would be like where Drake isn't dropping as actively as he is, and so I think that kind of empowered this mindset that I had when seeing the show and writing the piece too, because like it's been a pretty long run that he's been on. Yeah. And people were writing his end when he dropped Views, and then you see how much we've gotten since Views and the records that he's broken and all that, and even though public opinion has changed on him, like he's still as popular as he's ever been. But I think for me, not only thinking about the significant moments for me as a fan, but the significant moments for him, because he's performing songs like God's Plan, he's performing Laugh Now, Cry Later, he's performing In My Feelings and Nice for What, like some of his biggest records. And I remember in the Rap Radar interview, he told Elliot Wilson and B-Dot, he was like, I don't ever want to end my show with like old songs. Like, so if I drop a new album, I want to have a song where it gets so big that I can end my show with it because it makes sense. So when he's ending shows with Legend from 2015, when he dropped so many projects since then, I was like, and he did that at the Apollo show. I think he did that at Dreamville Fest, and he did that on the tour, and he was doing that on the tour. Right. And then, and I don't want to say my article was the catalyst for it. Perhaps this was his plan, but he started to do a different song at the end of every show, and I was like, This is interesting timing. It's interesting timing. Like maybe I was tripping, but I think for me it was using the insight and the knowledge I had as a fan, a really tapped in fan, but of course removing that fandom from it, the kind of bias and the fanatics of it, and just like understanding what I've seen throughout his career and how this shift and how he approached shows meant something.
Yeah. And writing-wise, coverage-wise, published date-wise, what would you have changed about this piece, if you could, if anything at all?
Yeah, nothing, man. Me and Ayana spent a long time on this one, a really long time. I mean, not really long, because I saw him perform at the end of July. I don't remember the exact. I think this came out
In August.
Yeah, like I want to say it got published the day I went to Detroit, which was like August 4th.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't even a long time, but it felt like it just because she saw that I had so much insight and so many different things that I noticed, and she just wanted to make sure that I supported them, I fully explained them, I gave proper background, proper context. So looking at it now, I'm very happy with it. Like anytime I go back and reread that, I'm also very happy with it. I don't think I'd change anything. I mean, I do hope that there is a day where I can interview him just to speak like about a lot of things, but especially the way he moved on this tour and why he was closing with Legend. I mean, you can make a lot of guesstimations about that, but then the fact that he started to change it and started to do a special song at the end of the show, because he had Central C come out and perform sometimes, and he had Sexy Red do a couple openings. He had Lil Yachty do a couple openings. He had Travis come out once, and but I would just love to get his mindset on really from the Apollo show onward. He had this emphasis on his older music when he had a lot of new music and a lot of new music that resonated with people. Like I don't think he did, besides like I think Way Too Sexy, he didn't do any of Certified Lover Boy at his show, and there's a lot of songs on Certified Lover Boy that people like. Knife Talk too, but so there's nothing I would change about it though. I was very happy with it.
And in covering Metro Boomin and Drake today, I would be remiss to not talk about a timely discussion with you. But in a constructive way.
Right.
So for the people who may not know, Metro Boomin and Future dropped an album, We Don't Trust You. The answer to what would happen if, Future's thought that maybe Metro Boomin doesn't trust you, we got the answer. And on a song, I think it's called Like That.
Like That, yeah.
Kendrick Lamar appears on this track and does very Kung Fu Kenny-like things. Takes a shot at Cole, definitely takes a shot at Drake. And the discourse has evolved into something interesting.
It's gotten very nasty.
So as a hip-hop reporter, Vibe Magazine, maybe let's push that aside for a second.
Sure.
As someone who is a connoisseur of the culture, someone who is a reporter of the culture, someone who's passionate about hip-hop music in general, but you're a fan of Drake, you're a fan of Metro. If you were going to sort of break down this in an article, how would you attempt to explain, one, the discourse behind it, and two, what the hell is happening? Because Future also had something to say, which is crazy.
I mean, we don't know the origin of the Drake and Metro beef. There's a lot of rumors about that. And so I would just do my best to be responsible and make it clear, like, neither one of them have come out and said what their issue is with one another. They've actually downplayed it. Like, Metro said there's no beef, like, at some point last year, even though he had that deleted tweet about how...
Tweet deleters.
Like, her loss is winning all these awards, Heroes and Villains isn't getting anything. And, when he produced Thug's last album, Business is Business, Drake was on the intro, Parade on Cleveland, and then Metro dropped a Metro's version where he moved Parade on Cleveland down in the track list and said, this is the intro that should have been there. It felt real petty. Like, it felt very, very targeted. So we don't know the specific origin of their problems, but giving a timeline of different things that have happened, which were seemingly things were negative between them. Same with Drake and Future. We know they had beef over to Tony Montana. Future wanted Drake to do the video. I actually watched that full interview clip like recently, and Future sounded really hurt by it. He was like, I could have got any artist from Atlanta, but you asked to do the remix, and I wanted you to do the video too, just to complete the thought. He kept saying, like, to give a complete thought. and you were talking about, I got to record my album, and he was like, you can't take 2 hours out of your day to record the album. Like, we'll come to New York, we'll come to Toronto, blah, blah, blah. Like, it was something Future was really bothered by. And I get it, because he wasn't the Future that he is now. Tony Montana was his first single. It was big. It was all over. And, like, at the time, music videos were still a pretty big priority. So, you get a dope video with Drake at that time, like, it would have been a big deal. So they were beefing over that, and then they got cool again, What a Time to Be Alive. All the great collabs we've gotten over the years. We don't know the specific issue between them. There was a rumor, I remember Nori talking about it, and a couple other people have talked about it, that Future was upset that Drake did Her Loss to 21 Savage. And I remember, if you remember, like 2019, 2020, they were teasing What a Time to Be Alive 2 heavy. Like heavy. Drake had like a jacket made, a chain made. Bro, we thought What a Time to Be Alive 2 was coming. Pandemic hit. We still got a bunch of collabs from them on Dark Lane demo tapes and High Off Life and Certified Lover Boy, but we didn't get that actual project. And so from Future's perspective, I would understand if, you really laid What a Time to Be Alive 2, like, you laid it on thick. Like, you made it seem like this was coming. Then you just stepped away, and then you do a collab with someone else. So, again, we don't know the specific origin of why things are so venomous between them now. So I would just do my best to provide that context. Of course, analyze the music itself, Future shots on the title track, selecting Kendrick Lamar of all people to be the feature and letting him go off like that is very strategic. It's like the Warriors signing KD. Knowing like him and Bron were looked at as like the top two, and after Bron beat you the year before, like you get the guy who everyone is putting next to you, and some people are trying to put over you, and then him beating you twice, like
right,
like,
I'm gonna get him. It's gonna take us over the top.
Yeah. So it's just like there's very surgical decisions being made. So doing my best to provide that context, predict what the origins are without being irresponsible, analyzing things for what it is, and then looking forward. Like we've seen how Drake responds in beef before. We saw how he did with Meek, Pusha T, Common, bars he's thrown at Diddy and Joe Budden. He responds more than people give him credit for. And him and Kendrick have had this Cold War for a while, and I think this is the most direct Kendrick has been in a while. So it's like, is Drake going to match up? Me personally, I'm not interested in Drake Kendrick Lamar rap beef anymore. I'm interested in seeing how Cole responds in rap beef. He's never really been engaged like that. So I think that's the really interesting part for me. But there's layers to this. There's a lot of layers to this, and I've read a few articles that have done a good job in providing as much context as possible without us knowing.
Do you know
what exactly is
do
going
you
on.
remember who wrote them, just to give them some love?
Fraser Tharp from GQ pretty much gave like a cool timeline of everything, and also actually reviewed the project itself, which the frustrating part for me is when I found out about the Kendrick verse, which was before the project came out. I was like, damn, this is going to be the talk of the weekend.
It's going to be bigger than the album,
and
conversation-wise.
Right. And I know Future and Metro do great work together. I think they're going to do great work together, but this is all people are going to be able to talk about. Similar to like Pusha T's Daytona was a really good album.
Fantastic.
But all people could talk about was Infrared, which led to Duppy, which then led to Story of Addie Don.
Yeah.
So, that's like the tough part as a fan of Future and Metro, is seeing their great work get overshadowed by the salacious, messy stuff. It's the reality of the music landscape that we're in, especially with social media. Everyone wants to get their fire viral tweet off, get likes off of stuff, and and get their opinions off. And I get it, it's fun sometimes. But yeah, like I said, I would just context, origin, timeline, analysis, review, and then be like, yo, this is what I want to see next.
And that's how we report.
Yep.
And just one last thing before you dip.
Absolutely.
If there was one thing you would try to tell the next generation of writers, or even somebody who is in our generation, but maybe their feet are cold about jumping in to a ship that kind of looks a little iffy from the outside, what sense of hope would you hope to tell them, to inspire them to come on in?
I think what keeps me going, as much as I love what I do, and I love where I do it. No job is perfect, but I do love where I do it. You need an outlet that is non-job related. I'm thankful to have Stay Busy, Live Take,
Mm-hmm.
the A Show, where I can talk about things I love
Yeah.
without the pressure of, all right, I have to do my best on this
Yeah.
because my salary is on the line.
Mm-hmm.
Like I do my best with everything that I do, but it's more of a passion thing than like, yo, if I don't hit this quota, then like
It's all over.
Yeah, like they might fire me and stuff like that. So I think I don't ever want to discourage anyone from coming into the space, even though it's changed and there are a lot of things that I don't like about it. But make sure you have an outlet where the moments where you don't like the space, and they are inevitable, it's going to happen. You're not going to be able to do everything that you want to do at places you get. Like, your dream job comes with harsh realities, something that I've learned. But make sure that you have other places where you can do the things that you love, and it's just out of love. And if you can make a bag off of it too, absolutely do that. But you gotta have your safe space away from the ups and downs that come with a career as volatile and unpredictable as journalism.
Beautifully said, man. Thank you for joining me, bro.
Mm-hmm.
Appreciate you. Thank you for sharing all these beautiful insights into yourself
Yeah.
and the industry we in. I'm your host, Mark Griffin. He's Armon Sadler.
That's me.
And this has been Behind the Byline. I bid you adieu.